All right, all right. What's going on, Facebook? What's going on? It's been a long time since we did a Keep It Real Fridays, but we are back for this July edition. This will probably be the only one for this particular month. But we always like to start Keep It Real Fridays with a little gospel go-go. That's some old school critical revelation band, some CRB, praise party, and fist bump. Always want to shout out the Gospel Go-Go family because that's been a part of Keep It Real Fridays through the years. I'm so excited for my guests this evening. But before we do that, just for those who are logging in who are not familiar with Keep It Real Fridays is a vision that started about 16 years ago now. It's moved into that year 16 now. And it started as just a youth and young adult service, just kind of bringing young people together so that they can have a safe, authentic space to just worship God in their own way. And we used to do Keep It Real Fridays at different churches throughout the DMV. And part of what we did was, doing gospel go-go, rap, mime, spoken word, just all different types of genres of gospel music, dance ministries, just whatever that had a creative arts type of aspect to doing ministry in a different way. That's what we try to do with Keep It Real Fridays. And we just did that for years, started out with like 7 young people in our first service and eventually evolved at one point where we got up to like 300 young people in a service worshiping on a Friday night, which has been big over the years. So we've just seen just partnerships with different churches and ministry throughout the DC area. That's just a little piece of Keep It Real Fridays. And so, of course, the pandemic changed all of that. We haven't been able to do those type of worship style services, but thought it was important that the vision of Keep It Real Fridays not die. And so now Keep It Real Fridays has been more of a social media podcast platform where we talk about issues that affect young people and young adults. But on the kind of the spirit of Keep It Real Fridays, that's kind of how I met my guest tonight. It wasn't necessarily Keep It Real Fridays, but it was an event. For those who I am a retired spoken word artist. I say that jokingly because people ask me to do poetry, and I'm like, I haven't wrote a poem in like 5 years. So I like to joke and say I'm a retired spoken word artist. But years ago, I connected with this young woman of God, invited me out to do spoken word. We were just rapping. I told her I'm getting so old now. I don't even remember how we connected, but we connected. And that was the most important thing. But she invited me out to a church to minister and spoken word. And I've been over to a church to just preach the word of God. And we just been connected and friends since. And I'm grateful for the connection. But that's the connection of this woman of God. Her name is Brooke. And I'm just going to turn it over to her. I'm going to let her introduce herself in her own way, and then we'll jump right into tonight's subject and conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Thomas, for letting me come on your platform. I am so excited. My name is Brooke. I'm a marketing expert, motivational speaker, and career strategist. And I use my experiences to help Black women overcome workplace trauma. And I recognize that young Black women experience workplace trauma. Oftentimes, they don't speak up due to insecurities and being the only person of color in the room. As a young Black woman who didn't speak up in the past, I am passionate about helping Black women find their voice, build their self-confidence so they can bring their whole self to the workplace.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Brooke. And, so for those of you who logging in, so tonight's subject is talking about overcoming workplace trauma. And so, I thought this was particularly important as a subject. Again, Keep It Real Fridays is really talking about issues that deal with youth and young adults. And I thought it was important because, a lot of us, especially early on in our workplace journeys, as you talked about, sometimes we deal with conflict, and sometimes we feel like especially when we're starting our first job or jumping into our career. We feel like that sometimes, like when trauma happens in the workplace or when conflict happens in the workplace, that we just have to put up with it, and that this is just something I got to go through to be able to keep my job, or I'm just going to overlook this situation because I'm trying to impress my superiors or my supervisors, or I just got to endure this because I want to have a job because I got bills to pay, like got to pay this rent, got to pay this car note. Gotta, pay this cell phone bill. I gotta go to the club oh, no, I'm sorry. But no, the reality of it is like, we're also thinking about our money as an aspect of our decision making of how, we deal with certain things in the workplace. So, I just want to say thank you, Brooke, for being my guest so we can kind of unpack this a little bit. So first, before we get into that, I want you're in a space now where you've become a motivational speaker about these topics, and I know you have your own personal journey. I would just like you to really kind of elaborate on, like, just how did you get to this place where this became such an important issue for you. I know you also you started to elaborate about being a Black woman in the workplace, but how did this journey get to this place of you becoming this motivational speaker and talking about such sensitive issues?
Yes, thank you. In January, I joined a speaker coaching program called Next Level, and that program totally transformed me personally and professionally. And I knew that I wanted to talk about this important issue. About 7 years ago, I went through a traumatic workplace experience that took a toll on me, if I can be transparent, mentally and physically. And I'm speaking up today to bring awareness and to provide resources and strategies that I wish I had when I was going through my workplace experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So wow. Thanks for being transparent about your own personal journey. So the first thing I would like to try to unpack here is, some people may be, when we say workplace trauma, so there's a lot in that phrase there. And, and even when we bring up the word trauma, that doesn't, that triggers in some senses. It's like, whenever we talk about any type of trauma, that's triggering. But can you unpack a little bit of what workplace trauma is, what it looks like, and let's just start there. And I think I have a follow up to that, depending on your response. But let's what does that look like? What does it feel like?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So oftentimes we don't even understand or realize that we have gone through workplace trauma. And oftentimes, sometimes we think that it's normal or that we should be treated this way, just because we're happy to have the job. But workplace trauma, especially racial trauma, can be defined as microaggressions, small, subtle words that can be offensive. For example, you are so articulate. Having others surprised that you talk very well. Being disrespected. Hearing demeaning remarks about you or people that look like you. Feeling that you can't talk about yourself or what you do outside of work. Gaslighting. This one is very popular. Gaslighting, being made to think that what you are going through isn't really happening, that it's all in your mind. Being bullied at work to do something that you don't want to do. Being excluded based on your race or your identity. And fear-based leadership.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Brooke. It makes me think about some of my personal experiences as I know you have the experience of being the Black woman in the workplace, but also we share similar experiences, but I know they also differ as well. I recently, for those who don't know, I ventured into the space of working in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And, part of me jumping into that journey has been because some of those same things that you just mentioned here. And I recently shared a story similar to what you just said at work. I can remember, times where I went to work and it's pretty casual and laid back at work, right? I could go and wear a polo shirt and, a pair of jeans or slacks and some tennis shoes or whatever, and everything's cool. But I could remember days where, I would dress up and wear a suit just because I want to switch it up,
Mm-hmm.
And, interesting how every time I would wear a suit, people would come to me and say, wow, you look nice today. Where are you going for an interview today? And I'm like,
what?
And but it wasn't just from one person. That was just like, one of those microaggressions, subtle microaggressions. And I'm like, why is it the black guy that wears a suit gotta be the one going on an interview? But nobody else is saying that to any of my other colleagues that don't look like me. And so you mentioned about the microaggressions, and I want to kind of into my follow-up questioning here, talking about the signs that person should recognize when experiencing these difficulties. Like, I know you mentioned the gaslighting. I know you mentioned the microaggressions and some other things, but like, what are some signs that we should like start to pick up, and it may be just you elaborating on a few of these things. Like, what are some signs that we should recognize that, it may come across like really harmless, but like we should really like, I need to start taking note of this.
Yes, definitely. So it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be something that you are uncomfortable with based on your identity or culture. For example, I'll never forget early in my career, I was in a meeting. I was the only person of color, and my boss, she asked me, when is Kwanzaa celebrated? And she looked right at me. Another situation I'll never forget, I was going on my 24th birthday, and my boss said, Brooke, how can you afford to go on a nice vacation because you drive a cheap car?
Mm.
Also, like, could she touch my hair? How can you afford nice clothes? Like these small, subtle things that you're like, oh, I just let it roll off my shoulder. I got bigger fish to fry. And those can, you just let those keep building up and building up. Those microaggressions, that's workplace trauma that you're experiencing, and you don't have to experience that. It's not okay. You can speak up and work, and you can advocate for yourself.
Indeed. So I want to kind of jump into it because you said something that I hear often. Black women at my particular organization where I work has talked about, one of those pieces, about people wanting to say, hey, can I touch your hair? Or even maybe it's not even a touching of the hair. Maybe it's because, Black women's hair is unique. And it's like, there's so many different ways and styles that may not be deemed as professional, so my follow-up kind of, thought to that is like, I know my experiences as a Black male, but I would like for you to really kind of talk about the experiences of a Black woman trying to advance in your career, trying to navigate certain situations. And I'm asking you this because there may be Black women that are watching this right now that are like, I go through that same thing that Brooke just talked about. I just really need to hear how Brooke handles that as a Black woman trying to advance her career.
Definitely. I just did a post, I believe it was last Sunday, that the Crown Act, we were talking about that online. It was really popular about the Crown Act. And I discussed that because early in my career, I never wore braids. I always had my hair straightened. I had to look that corporate look, but all hair is natural hair. And what's most important is the woman and the integrity underneath the hair. and I would say, oh, I have to look a certain way, corporate hair straight. But no, I can show up and be who I am and do the great work. Also, let's look at some research and data. According to the Lean-In report on the state of Black women, 49% of Black women feel that race or their ethnicity will make it harder for them to get a raise, a promotion, or a chance to get ahead, compared to just 3% of white women and 11% of women overall. That's very true. You know, you can go out here, you can have all the degrees, but still it's hard for you to get in your foot in the door. I went on 100 interviews. Yes, 100 interviews after I got my master's degree from American University, but I had perseverance and resilience to keep pushing forward even after those 100 interviews. And I'll never forget, a Black woman gave me a chance. She gave me a chance in corporate America as my first job in corporate America. Also, let's look at the Fortune 500 list. Currently, there are only two Black females for the first time ever on the Fortune 500 list: Rosalind Buer, CEO of Walgreens, and Tassandra Duckett, CEO of TIA. There's a lot to work that has to be done as we continue to push forward and to get Black women in leadership positions, because overall Black people only account for 3% of senior leadership positions at large companies in the US. And so there's much work. We have to keep advocating, speaking up on these issues, and helping each other as we go. And I'm so happy for this platform that you have, and just continue to build your tribe. I'm thankful for my mentors that poured into me, that guided me through my workplace trauma. They gave me advice when I was going through my experience. And I'm so grateful for that, for having a community and for having people that will pour into you. So that's very important.
Definitely. And just want to welcome those who have logged in. We're talking about overcoming workplace trauma with my friend Brooke. You can follow her on IG at Brooke_motivates, and follow the great work that she's doing and the platforms that God is opening doors for her to really speak about this subject. Also, for those who are watching, you can feel free to leave comments wherever you may be viewing from, whether that may be Facebook Live or from YouTube. You can definitely share your thoughts. If something that's resonating or you agree or even have a thought or question about, feel free to post a comment, and we'll make sure that we lift that up. So I want to apologize because I said I was going to ask you anything off of stuff that we talked about. But there's going back, but just kind of sticking with that thought of women in leadership. And, a lot of times, especially you lifted up those statistics, and that there's only really 2 women in that C-suite space. And, and for those of you who are not really, familiar with that term C-suite, it's basically those who are like CEOs or COOs or CFOs or whatever that may be for organizations. Sometimes it's because there's stigmas or stereotypes attached to Black women. Do you feel like there are stereotypes out there that maybe you want to mention or talk about? If not, I know a few that I could bring up and talk to you.
The angry Black woman, that's a stereotype that we always have to tread, because you're treading a fine line between speaking up in an assertive way versus being considered as angry, mad, or aggressive. And you gotta have to kind of like find that balance of, because early in my career I didn't speak up. I would let things go on and on and on. And as where I am now, I do speak up. I do advocate for myself in the workplace. And sometimes we have to even get out of our own head about, oh, what is somebody gonna say about this? Or, oh, if I speak up in a meeting, Are they going to say that's a dumb idea? No. Any idea, they brought you there to do that job. You are brilliant in your own way, and that's a stigma. Yeah, it's real. We have to, overcome that in the workplace every day, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, and those stigmas are real. And I want to kind of back up a little bit to something you shared about going, because just you sharing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable about you saying that you went through like 100 interviews, literally, and I can remember, it makes me think back to my own experience. Um, I guess in my first couple of years at my current organization, and don't get me wrong, I love where I work there and love my organization. I've been able to bounce back from some earlier experiences, but I can remember I was a Black man applying for administrative type positions. And before I got to the job that I got to now, I applied for 7 different positions in my organization. Some of the positions I made it to like the final interview stage and just missed out. But the majority of the positions that I applied for, and I think just about all of them, every person that got hired was a young white woman, and they
Wow.
were administrative positions. So, as I jumped into this diversity, equity, and inclusion space, it was something for me to learn from, because at first I wasn't going to let it discourage me, but I also like use this as, okay, I'm going to use this to develop my professional development, get some more skills. And the reality is many of us who are persons of color have to work twice as hard to get to the spaces that we are at. But I often tell that story is because like most people, like going back to that stereotype of angry Black woman, there's not this real picture of a Black man being in an administrative type of role, that, we're looked upon as like the custodial staff, the mailroom, which I used to work in. Even when I stepped into my next role, people still thought I worked in a mailroom because I was a Black guy, And so like we have to work so hard to abolish and, eliminate these stereotypes that are out there. But I just want to say thank you for lifting that up. There's a word that you said in your response that I would like you to elaborate on, and it's actually a good segue into my next thought. You talked about advocating for yourself and learning how to do that. There's a lot of young professionals that, are listening, who may watch this, may listen to this, see the recording afterwards. They're like, I'm going through at my job and I'm like 5 seconds away from cussing my boss out. Like I'm just this much away that I'm about to give him my 2 weeks and I'm out this joint. And so, and there's a fine line of how we should kind of deal with workplace conflict or drama, microaggressions. But you talked about advocating. We don't really talk about advocating for yourself. So I'm glad that you really, really mentioned that, because most of us, we just walk away or we just apply for the next job. Can you unpack that a little bit about advocating for yourself, what that looks like, what steps you took for yourself, and maybe suggestions for somebody else?
Sure. Yes, advocating can look in different ways depending on what you're comfortable at doing. Advocating can look like building a support system for yourself. Advocating can look like assessing your strengths and your weaknesses. You might not feel comfortable addressing conflict at your workplace. Also, um, advocate, advocating for yourself can speak on issues when they arise. Don't wait for your performance review to come around and then you address issues with your boss. No, address it right then and right then so it doesn't linger on. Also, advocate can look like always being polished, learning the business, having those crucial and uncomfortable conversations with your boss. Some it can look like also writing down what you want to say before you have a meeting with your boss. You might get nervous, have some notes down of points that you want to address before you have that meeting. Advocating also can look like maybe going to HR or someone in a senior management role that can assist you or facilitate that conversation if you're not comfortable. Also, advocating for yourself is getting help. A lot of times in the Black community, that there's a stigma around mental health, and you can get help if you need it. Mental health counseling at work through employee assistance program. Your church might have some free counseling resources, or you can call your insurance company. So these are some different ways that you can advocate depending on your comfort level and how that looks like for you and your situation.
Awesome, awesome, and thank you for sharing some of those resources. I definitely was going to ask you to share some of that. So, I want to back up again. Something you said. You talk about like sitting down and having a conversation, with our supervisors, or maybe even as a colleague, just having these type of conversations. And you also talked about going to HR. So I'm kind of get you to elaborate a little bit more, and I kind of want to throw a scenario out there. So like, let's just say I feel like I'm being mistreated by my boss, but I'm like, I'm going straight to HR. Like, we about to settle this. Like, what would you, advice that you would give to that person that's like ready to escalate that step? Do we back up and wait before we get to HR? Do we try to have that conversation with our supervisor? Share some wisdom with this.
It depends on what the situation is, but one of my great mentors, she advised me, take the emotion out. And oftentimes we can get so heated. Somebody said something to us at work, but take the emotion out. Wait, until you can calmly collect yourself and you can articulate what's going on. And sometimes the issue might not be your manager, sometimes it might be yourself too, that you might need to look at yourself for something that you might be doing. You might be the problem or the issue. So definitely,
it ain't me, Brooke. It ain't me. It ain't me. It's all my. No, you telling me I gotta look at myself?
but seriously, just take the emotion out, because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you if you want to go to someone, because all you're just going to be, high on emotions and not able. But take the emotion out and state the facts. State the facts about what happened and take the emotion out of it. Mm-hmm.
Indeed. I want to come back to another thought about that in a moment, but I do want to take a quick commercial break. And for those of you who support Keep It Real Fridays, we want to. So part of my mission in life, and along with Keep It Real Fridays, is to support other youth ministries in the area, locally and abroad. I have the blessed opportunity to, at this stage of my life, to be a mentor to youth ministry leaders and workers and youth ministers, just based on not because I'm so great, but just because I've been doing youth ministry so long, and I've just figured out, secrets and, ways to just try to enhance what we do. So part of my mission and purpose is to empower youth leaders. And the Lord has blessed me with a $5,000 grant that people can match. That $5,000 grant. So I invite you that if you believe in the empowerment of youth workers and youth leaders, feel free to go to that site that's on the that you're looking at, www.nnym.org/ my first and last name. That's 2 E's, not 1 E. Some of y'all leave off, one of the E's in my name. I ain't gonna call y'all out. And some of y'all leave off the C too, but I ain't gonna call y'all out. Make sure BRACKEEN. But NNYM, which stands for National Network of Youth Ministries, which I have an awesome opportunity to do some great ministry work here on the East Coast, especially in the DC metropolitan area. So I would love for you all to help me meet that $5,000 grant. If not, just share it with somebody, and somebody might have a $5,000 check they may want to write to me that don't know me. So I'm okay with $5,000 checks as well. But back to our conversation at hand. We talked about kind of dealing with that workplace trauma, or that conflict with the supervisor or colleague. We talked about, you just kind of shared with some wisdom of how to really approach those type of situations, and really that advocacy, which I thought was very important to talk about. And you also talked about some resources, as far as whether it's going to HR or whether it's building up a support system. One thing I want to just kind of add to, and I don't want to take away from your response, but making sure that if our organizations have employee resource groups, that's a part of our support system. Or just, again, like you said, taking that emotion out, because sometimes there's something in what's said that may actually be true, but it's just maybe, yes, the deliverance was wrong, or maybe the receiver just might, I just might be in my feelings because you telling me about myself, and I don't like to deal with myself. Like, I'm always right. But also, something that made me think about as well, Brooke, and I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about this, but like, sometimes our work styles are different. And sometimes, we have to think about that as we're taking positions at jobs. Like sometimes, like, I'm a lot of people think I'm an extrovert. I'm not. I'm an introvert. Sometimes I don't like people. And sometimes that might be a conflict that's going on within what's going on. We just may have different work styles. I may not be a person that likes to be micromanaged, or I might be a person that likes to be hands-on. And sometimes, we have to understand the dynamics of, workplace team dynamics, whether there's some type of inclusive work styles or whatever. But even I think about like Enneagram, like sometimes, knowing, some places don't care about Enneagram or other, those type of leadership assessments, but sometimes knowing who you are is important, because then you are able to identify that conflict. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or any other resources, other than what you mentioned. But I think those are important as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was a part of employee resource groups, and those are amazing. You get to meet friends or people that you normally want to get to meet, that you work with, and just do projects, and it's really amazing. Also, on the mental health resources, some resources are Black Girl Therapy, Clinicians of Color, the Boris Foundation, that's by Taraji P. Henson, where they have some free mental health resources, Psychology Today, and BetterHelp. So those are some mental health resources that you can reach out to, because you should not do this on your own, and it's okay to ask for help. And how many times, as I can be real, I've dumped stuff on people. Or how many times have you dumped stuff on people? And it's important to have an objective view on what's going on, so they can help give you some strategies to work through that.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Definitely. So I have one more question for you. Cause I'm following what you're doing. You just really launched out into the deep over the last couple of months, really jumping out there, sharing your story, sharing your experience. Like I told you, I jokingly serious. I said you're killing the game. Like almost like every week now, I see you on a different flyer or a different Facebook Live. But I heard mentioned on your, just scrolling through some of your contact, you're talking about this getting back to me experience, which, I don't know much about, but, it resonates to, the subject we're talking about. And I know it's applicable, but I want you to kind of really share with the audience about what is the getting back to me experience.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so humbled and honored to do this work and to bring Black women strategies. And the Getting Back to Me experience is a 3-week interactive experience for Black women. The purpose of this 3-week experience is to help Black women heal from workplace trauma and provide them with resources and tools to help them do so. We'll cover my 5 signature tips to finding yourself after workplace trauma. We will have community in this Getting Back to Me. It's getting back to me before the trauma and who you really are. We'll have homework. We'll have a digital workbook. We'll have special expert guests that will be coming in, and it's going to be every Thursday, starting July 15th. We're going to have weekly Brown Skin Girl celebrations, a Brown Skin Girl party. All the sessions will be recorded, and we're going to deep dive into these resources and give you a plan to help execute them. The link to register is tinyurl.com/back-to-me-experience, www.tinyurl.com/back-to-me-experience, or you can go to my Instagram, and the link is in my Instagram, and my Instagram is Brooke_motivate. And I'm just really excited about this. Women have been signing up, and just to hear the stories from women discussing this and just getting healed and just being get free, and how I can share my story to positively impact them. I just thank God. I thank God for that. So that's what the Getting Back to Me experience is. And we're launching it next Thursday, so there's still time to register.
Yes. Awesome. And I know somebody might be listening like, I didn't catch that. I didn't get that registration address, but definitely at Brooke_motivates. Go to her IG page. You don't have to try to figure out. You can just see her IG page on the screen, connect with her on IG, add her, follow what she's doing. To get connected to the Getting Back to Me experience, but not just the Getting Back to Me experience. Is there any other things that you have coming up, or other maybe there's things that's coming up that you might be a part of, or maybe some things that you just recently done that you want to share with people that they should know about you?
Yes, I am so excited. I'm speaking at the Rooted Retreat, and it's going live. It'll be July 21st to the 23rd. So I'm very excited about that. The other week I spoke at the Awesome Conference. So I'm just really excited for what's next to come, for me speaking out and just helping Black women. I'm just an advocate. I'm not a mental health professional, but I'm an advocate for mental health. I'm an advocate for Black women, for community, because we definitely need each other to thrive.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brooke. This has been a good, rich conversation, and definitely you just really talked about some stuff that we need to, unpack, specifically in a Black community. But we know that, especially in the workplace, that there's a lot of inequities and, many organizations around our country. It's important that, we help people who are feeling at the lesser end of that inequity, to provide them with resources and opportunities to really help them through those experiences that they're going through. And just thank you, just as a reminder that they don't have to go through it. They just don't have to deal with it, that they can, advocate for themselves. They don't just have to just like send them that email like, deuces, I'm gone in 2 weeks, but we can advocate for ourselves. We can certainly turn around our situations. And and often, one thing you said, it took that one person, that Black woman that believed in you. In my case, it wasn't specifically a Black woman, but I found a white woman supervisor that took a chance on me, that believed in me. When I was at a place I was ready to quit, I was ready to like, am I supposed to be here? Like, let me start looking elsewhere. But she took a chance on me, and has assisted me. Like, I can say my supervisor is probably the greatest, one of the greatest. I don't want to slight any supervisor that I've had that might be watching this right now. One of the greatest supervisors that I've had, because she's, in her own way, she's helped to nurture my professional development and growth. And obviously you are evidence of that investment, of that Black woman that poured into you, and you have the opportunity that you're pouring into others. And we're grateful for what God is doing in your life. And Austin said, awesome conversation listening from North Carolina. I'm not sure if that's one of your
Thank you.
But wanted to share that comment. So thank you again, Brooke. It's been a great conversation. And remember, connect with Brooke at Brooke_motivates on IG. Follow the great things that she's doing. Y'all can follow Keep It Real Fridays. Well, probably next episode will be next month. I ain't gonna even lie to y'all and say we're gonna have another one next week, because next week is my 40+1. And I don't know, I might be partying for the rest of the month. So in my own way, by myself. No, I'm joking, not by myself. But I just said that because I don't want to be around people. But no, and all jokes aside, that, keep up with what we're doing. KeepItRealFridays.com or at KIR Fridays on social media. Also, if you're willing to kind of sow into the greater work, nnym.org/my name, Thomas Brackeen. Those are opportunities to stay connected with the great work that it's doing. Y'all go and follow Brooke. Y'all go like every photo and flyer on her page. And thank you again, Brooke. We'll connect soon.
Oh, my computer had froze, so I don't know if you asked me something.
No, you're good. I'm just saying thank you once again, and want everybody to go flood your page. And just thank you for all that you're doing, and we'll connect again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.